Welcome. Please take a seat. We're delighted to be here today to have an in-conversation Q&A with Antony Micallef here to my right. And behind you can see some of the images and paintings that he's been doing. Thank you to the Duke and Duchess, Chatsworth Arts Festival, and Becky and Kate Brindley for helping to organise this incredible weekend where the sun shines. So the gods are looking after art and culture in Derbyshire. Let me first introduce Antony Micallef, who was taught by landscape painter John Virtue, a former student of Frank Auerbach. Antony Micallef first appeared on the British art scene in 2000 following his success as a prize winner of BP Portraiture Award. And since then, his mix of political imagery fused with contemporary expressionism has led him to widely recognized as one of the finest painters in contemporary art today. His work features in collections across the globe and has been shown in prominent institutions such as the National Portrait Gallery, the Royal Academy, Tate Britain, and the ICA London. That's an incredible achievement, Antony. So welcome to Chatsworth.
Thank you.
And our session is really about how to be a painter. And your story is incredibly interesting. In particular, the starting points from when you were a young boy growing up in Swindon, a family of immigrant settlers from Malta, a father who was a metal worker, a mum who was a cleaner, from very humble working class backgrounds. You started from that point. So the question, I suppose, is what was the moment and how did it all start for you to get into this?
Okay. I just want to say thank you to everybody for coming along. It just starts with you just enjoying your art. You know, I just draw sharks, eagles, you know, play with soldiers and just loving art. And I was very dyslexic at school, so I found school really tough. But the only thing I really looked forward to and gave me real solace was my art lessons. And you know, you're in school, you've got that hour coming in the late afternoon, you're just looking forward to that thing. So I just knew, as a kid, like, you know, you just home in on that, you know, you've got to enjoy things, and that, you know, art gave me confidence, you know, and it's quite nice, like, when you have sickies at school, you know, I was just drawing all day, and my dad would always try and make me do extra homework and all this because I was ill, but I just wanted to draw, actually. So that's just how it starts. It just starts with a love and a passion, and then you keep doing it, you know, and you think one day I'll be older and then I'll have to get a real job and all that kind of stuff. But you just keep drawing, and then obviously through education you follow the things you love. But it starts with just passion, really. But you never think I never thought I'd ever be painting full time, or, you know, to be an artist, even like talking, you know, doing talks like this, because you just, you know, the rest of your family work in factories or do this or drive vans, you know, and you just assume you're going to be doing this thing, but so you just have to love it. And, you know.
But you mentioned just now dyslexia, school and art, and escaping in a sense.
Yeah,
escapism. Into a space whereby you would pick up a pencil. Yeah. So you started with illustration then? Illustration,
yeah. I mean, it's funny because I'm a painter, you know, you exhibit in galleries, fine art. I didn't even know what fine art was, you know, you just paint. And then growing up in Swindon, I remember I used to go and visit my family in London. They lived in the East End, my aunties. I remember in the car as we were driving, if I'd spot a gallery, I'd think, gallery! And try and note where that was down. This was before the internet. And then, you know...
How old were you then, sorry?
Well, I guess then I was in my teens, if I'm, you know, starting to get...
So you're beginning to form a
yeah, I mean, you know, if you're from, like, Swindon, I love Swindon, but it's a cultural desert, and if there are no corridors to where you're going, like, you have no help, and so you've got to be led you know, in this way. You've got to be shown there's windows and there's a door here, and it's difficult if you're from a place where it's, you know, there are kind of no opportunities. I remember being in the job centre after graduating from university, and I thought, I can't tell the woman at the desk I want to be a painter. It doesn't make any sense. And so I said I want to be a graphic designer, because there's maybe one job in Swindon to do that. And she looked at me and she said, well, you can work at Hundal, because everyone else works. So and I thought, I don't want to do that. So I got a part-time job. This is just after I left uni. My dad, bless him, converted the shed into a studio for me. So I was painting in the shed after university, carrying on painting. And then I did part-time jobs at the post office or whatever. I'm just going to say everything's just in my head, so sorry.
Is this an art degree?
Yeah, sorry. So I did a fine art degree after I did A level, you know, and all that. So
what was interesting as you were sort of moving and shifting in from illustration to painting to fine art, you didn't have a concept of what fine art was.
No, I didn't. And you know, to be honest, I always loved films, Star Wars, comics. I loved 2000 AD. I had a great teacher at A level who used to illustrate for 2000 AD. So for me, he was a superstar who was teaching me, and I loved that. And sometimes, well, I've been very lucky to have 3 or 4 people throughout my life, through education, who really made me believe I could do what I want to do. And that was gold. It's really good. It's like getting a lift from these people. And it carries you for maybe a few years, and it makes you really hungry to work, which is really important. But there was a guy called Philip Swarbrick who used to be an illustrator, and then he was teaching at the local college in Swindon. But he gave me a lot of sort of insight and made me really hungry to work. And he was the one who introduced me to fine art, Lucian Freud, these painters, Francis Bacon. And I didn't know anything about these painters at the time, and then he made me look at them, and you know, that goes a long way. And then again, when I went to university, I met John Virtue, who really instilled discipline into me, how to paint, how to work in certain ways. But it's really important, I think, you know, as a young individual, to come across people who have a little bit of light, and they're not, because sometimes in art school, people, I don't know, it's really tiring, the education system. And if you meet someone who's really and they can give you something, it's really important.
They must have seen something in you to give so much as well.
I think, you know, I was really lucky in my year at university, so it was about 6 of us who really worked hard. And you egged each other on in a sense. And there was like a healthy competition, which I think was really important. And like John Virtue, you know, I think he wanted, you know, obviously you gravitate towards the people who do more work, you know, so you stay late and paint.
It's interesting, this, about the idea of who guides you in the environments you're in, and how those environments help to shift your practice.
Yeah.
What was interesting when I was reading about your biog and some of our earlier conversations was that you joined the Swindon Artists Society. How did that help? Or hinder?
It's really interesting, because if you're like Swindon, there were no opportunities. So I'd go through the yellow pages and thought, arts club, right? I want to do art. My parents are not into art, my family are not into art, but they're creative. And so I just needed an outlet. So I found the Swindon Art Society. Everyone must have been like, I don't know, I was in my teens, like maybe like 16, 17, and everyone was painting pictures of cats and all this, and I was painting pictures of my dad used to model for me. He used to pose me. I used to put them on tables and chairs, take photos, because I thought that's what Lucian Freud did. So I try and copy and do similar style paintings and poses. And my dad, like, he was always the best model when he got a bit pissed off, you know. So when he was a bit grumpy, that's when he wasn't smiling. So if you take a picture of your family, they normally smile. Like, don't smile, I'm going to paint you. So anyways, we do these pictures, and I'd be painting my dad. So I used my dad as a model for a very long time, actually. So,
and interestingly, because you couldn't afford to go to an art club and draw sort of
live modelling.
So you ended up where?
My dad was very supportive. Loved my dad for this, but around Swindon, around the outside, there's a lot of farms, a lot of pig farms, and I used to think, well, the skin textures are similar, so I used to draw and paint pigs for a lot of the time in my foundation. And they became like this guinea pig for human beings in a sense. So I used to crucify pigs and do all this stuff in my head, and it was just a vehicle. Now obviously you come past that stage, it's just a vehicle. But I just thought I can't afford models, so they've got human type textures.
So, to be a painter, one has to be resourceful if one doesn't have the means or the privilege of investment. So then you went to University of Plymouth after the Swindon experience and the foundation school there, and you studied a 3-year course in fine art. And whilst there, you were also working and getting a few commissions. I'd always... A telephone directory book, for example.
Yes, I mean, I did a front cover of a local telephone book, which to me was like, I've made it! This is amazing! And got 300 quid, and I just thought, wow, that's incredible. It was a lot of money. And I think I was a second year student, and like that meant a lot to me, just getting that commission. It was through a cousin. But I actually started sending my work off to galleries, probably in my really early 20s. And I thought, they don't need to know I'm a student. Why tell them? Why send them a CV? You just make your job harder. So I thought it's all merits on your work. So I used to make these postcards and thought, of my work and send them out in packs. I made so many. You send so much stuff off that you kind of don't expect any replies. And if something did come back, it was a bonus. But I started showing in a very small gallery in Lincolnshire.
Woodbine Cottage.
Woodbine Cottage Gallery. And like Rowan really gave, I was a young kid, and he gave me a chance. And I started selling paintings for £200 and bits and pieces here and there. And I was a second year at university, and it really helped.
Plymouth to Lincolnshire. Is that quite a distance?
Yeah, but your paintings travel, you don't, It always sounds like, these places, but your paintings go there.
And then when you sold your paintings, that gave you some inspiration.
Yeah, it gives you real motivation, and it's you want to be able to make money, right? So you need to.
So what was the kind of defining moment that started to shift your practice from, these kind of one-off random encounters, this £200 here, £300 there, being part of a gallery? How did the gallery help you in Lincolnshire? Did it actually move your...
Well, I think it helped me in terms of, experience is everything. And it's really good. Everyone wants to be in the biggest gallery in the museums and all this, but you can only start off with what you have. And so starting off in this small gallery, I remember going to an opening for the first time, and I actually went with my mum and dad, and it was quite weird, having glasses of wine and paintings, and I just, don't normally do that. But you start off somewhere small, and then you get used to that a bit, and then you look for other places, and then you read art magazines, you see other artists you love and admire, and you kind of look at their history and their track, and you go, okay, how does this work? How do they get into that gallery? And you try and be resourceful, and then you try and send away your work, but you always think you're the best you can be at that time, because you're young, because you don't know experience by then.
But whilst we were in Brighton, you were a graphic designer. You were earning £16,000 a year, and keeping your practice alive. But what shifts you from being a graphic designer to becoming the painter there?
Well, it's just opportunity. I studied fine art, but I taught myself every single graphic design package I could think of in my last year, because I never thought I could become a painter. And I thought, well, I've got an eye, graphic design, a computer is a tool, exactly the same as a brush. So I need to earn money, so maybe I can do that. And then hopefully, I was trying to guide myself into a position where I could earn a bit of money, get enough money to rent a flat. I rented a flat, a small studio, and I painted in the evenings. But I never thought, I could do it full time. So,
but there was one moment in particular in this period in your life where things start to shift, and that was the BP Portrait Award. How did that come about? How did you enter that? And who were the judges that gave this decision? And then, as a consequence of that, what begins to start to happen?
I think, as an artist, you send your work off to lots of different things and you get rejections. I had a pile of rejection letters from galleries. I wish I kept them all down.
Yes.
But it actually is good for you because it makes you stronger, it makes you more bulletproof. You get used to disappointment, you get used to rejection.
Right.
And that's all part of it. If you want to do anything creative, you're going to get tons of this because everyone wants to do the same thing as you. They've only got so many spaces. They all say, really love your work, but sorry, it's not for us at this time. You're like, fuck you. But you just get used to it.
And self-belief.
I wouldn't have it any other way now because you've got to be prepared for that. And it still comes sometimes. And so it's really good to have gone through that. And then things slowly happen. And then the BP Portrait Award happened. And that was a massive surprise for me. But after that, I had galleries approaching me for a change. And that was really nice.
When the BP Portrait Award happened, where was the work shown? Was it shown?
Yeah, it was a National Portrait.
National Portrait, which is an incredible
Yeah.
opportunity. Yeah. So you would have been the young tender age of 22, 23.
24.
And then that's when things start to happen. And that's where you make a definitive decision, I can do this full time.
No, not at all. Yeah, you never think you can do it full time. No. Yeah, you just think, I got lucky here, right. And then you have this great feeling for a few months, and then, it might last a year, and then you just think, and then you've got to, I didn't quit my job then, I was still working, so it took me a while to quit my job while painting.
Joins Pictures on Walls in 2004. Tell us about this.
It was this collective of artists who made really, I thought, exciting work, really engaging work, sometimes political, sometimes sort of edgy, dark, fun. I hate saying edgy. It's funny, I always thought, my work looks a bit like this now, what I'm getting into. So I just want to explain some of the stuff that's going on, but I used to go to Japan a lot, in New York, and I forgot to mention that I used to make a lot of sort of Japanese type paintings or cityscapes, and I could sell those, and I really loved making them, but I wanted to make these bodies, and I never thought anyone would ever want them. So, like I said, I used to paint my dad, and I've been painting myself for probably the last 25 years. But so for every 5 of those paintings, I'd make one of my heads. And then one day, the heads started selling, and I was so surprised. I thought, who would want these, Because who wants portraits of someone else in their room? But it's all down to good painting, right? So, and then you just learn, but I just wanted to throw that in just so you can understand. You had to be resourceful, how you thought about how to make some money. Try and do something you don't mind doing so you can do the stuff you love, And you just got to orchestrate and manoeuvre into position some way of doing that, And that's why I lived in Brighton, because it was cheaper than London at the time. I mean, Brighton's really expensive anyway. But I had a job there, and I managed to get things working. But, all these things are really important. Like, where's your studio? It's got to be in half an hour distance when you're walking. So if it's pissing down with rain, you don't want to go to a studio. So you've got to think of all these factors, Where do I get my brushes from? All this. And because I didn't have a car, still don't have a car. So you've got to, everything to do with your profession, you've got to try and make it easier for yourself, So,
just on that sort of being a painter, are you full-time painting now, though? You are full-time?
Yeah.
So you've got to that point now where you can
touch
just
wood.
but that's interesting. That there's still a vulnerability as an artist.
Yeah, I just think I hate that feeling of taking something for granted, because and if someone buys a print or a painting or anything, it pays my mortgage, and I'm really grateful. And I just don't ever forget that, because everything's a bonus, right? So And I just think that's really important, you know, and it's difficult trying to, you know, do this thing sometimes, you know, so what are you?
So, okay, but I mean, painting today then, in the 21st century, with all of these other mediums of visual expression, where do you see painting?
It's exactly the same place it always was, and it won't go away, and painting is dead. It's just fashions and mediums. So, you know, they've always said painting is dead, or like when video came out, or, you know, but everything's just a medium, and it's like you can use a brush, a pencil, a camera, a computer, and they all suggest and say different things, but, you know, it's like if you're digging a hole in the garden, you know, use a garden fork, you know, or like, you know, use tools for things, and painting is just a tool, depending on what you want to say. So it will never go out of fashion, but it will never disappear. It's just art, you know.
But there is a fashion and there is a trend as to how it comes and goes.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like it's really funny. They were saying before, like, you know, it's like in the 90s or early 2000s, like painting is. I always say painting is dead. But like now, like, narrative painting is really back in fashion, which I love. And also the Me Too movement, and, you know, Black Lives Matter. There are people doing really amazing paintings, and that, I think a lot of that's brought a lot of painting back in. So everything just goes round and comes back round and round, and you know, it's the same with any other art.
And you've been so resourceful and versatile, from graphic design, doing the random jobs, to now doing this sort of international space, and doing solo shows to group shows. What is it that you feel that your work is moving into? You know, as a painter now who's in the midlife, I guess, of your career, in sort of the fifth decade, halfway through the 40s, etc. Do you ever feel this is a time to invent or reinvent how and what you do and where it goes?
I don't think you can. I don't think you plan to reinvent yourself. You know, like things happen. I always say you should do what you just really enjoy doing, and you know, things change. Like your taste change, your aesthetics change. Like try and see as much, if you're into art, go and see as much art as you can, and you know, and it informs you, it gives you more information, you know more. It's like, you know, if you watch more news, you know more about the news. And it's the same with painting. And so my style, as you can probably see from the beginning to the end.
Where are we here?
This is kind of before I started going really thick painting.
Right.
But, you know, it started painting my father. There's sort of very sort of single figure Lucian Freud type paintings, the heads, which I've always been doing. And then, you know, it got very decorative, it got very sort of pop, these kind of things. And then it kind of went full circle again, back to the really thick, heavy impasto paint at the end. And I always want to do that, but I didn't have the courage or the dexterity at the time. So it took... you know, you just try to, you know, as you grow older in life, we change, and, you know, you become more mature. But so does your work. Your work is such a part of you that it's not a separate thing. So it travels with you, in a sense. There's
a brilliant essay by Paul Morehouse, the senior curator at V&A, senior consultant at National Portrait Gallery, and specialist in 20th century painting and expressionism. I'm just going to read something from that essay and then have a conversation about this. So Paul writes, while maintaining an illusionistic intimation of space and background, his portraits, meaning Antony's portraits, present a figure as if it has been subjected to an intense trauma. Say no more.
This is me.
That's you.
Well,
tell us about this kind of this shift. And you talk about the idea that, you know, you start in Disney World and you end up in a violent pornographic.
Not these ones.
No.
Yeah. Sorry, it's a funny quote.
It is a funny quote.
Yeah.
But it does lead to this kind of, because I was sharing your images before this talk with my team, who are a team of curators and artists, and some people say they love it It's incredible, the strokes and the styles, three-dimensional textures that you can sense, even if it's on Instagram or on 2D. But some people were traumatized by the violence within the work.
Yeah.
And there's something in there that, for example, here, unsettling.
Sure. I just, my dad always said to me, grew up in a Catholic family, like, why don't you paint a nice landscape or a picture of Jesus? And after that, I'd always want to paint the darkest thing I could think of. But on a, like when I paint these pictures, I don't see them as these dark figures. I know they kind of turn out this way, but to me, it's all about the contrast of the mark making and what the paint's doing, and where it's sliding and what's hanging off, and like, is it? I always say that like a painting, comes alive and it breathes on its own. Like there's a moment, you buy a canvas, it's just a canvas, and like it's just a piece of wood, with canvas on. You can kick it around your studio, but there's a time when you're painting and then these things become something. They become bits of art to you, or like you begin to care for them. And like I don't mean to paint dark things at all. Actually, it annoys me sometimes, but they always are so dark, and I kind of.
Where is that darkness coming from, do you think, or is it something? Is it something that's?
I just find it more interesting.
Right.
That's all. But it's not. I don't.
Well,
I don't see red as like the blood or anything. I just see the colour red. Or so I don't see them as. I can understand why people do, but I don't see them as dark.
You talk about thought versus feeling, and that art and your painting is about feeling more than thought. But I guess this is what we're talking about here, is that as humans we're drawn to either extreme happiness, i.e. laughter and jokes, or melancholy or tragedy, because they're deep emotions. They're extreme emotions on opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But you're drawn more so to this.
I guess, like if you go on a fairground ride, you want to go on the rides that take you up and down and really fast. And I feel I want that with my painting. I don't want to be in the middle, because that's just like normal life sometimes, isn't it? You want to be where you're super excited and really into it.
It reminds me. By saying that in being in the middle reminds me of something. It reminds me of what Grayson Perry said. He said, if you want to make money, do mediocrity really well. And that didn't seem so inspiring. And then a friend of mine talks about revolution.
Right.
And he says revolution doesn't happen in the middle ground. It happens in the root of a community, or at the top of a community. You have the privilege to make the difference, and the root who have the struggle and survival and fight. Yeah. I see you as the root revolutionary who has fought from start to finish and continues to do so today.
I mean, personally, I just feel whatever you do, you've just got to mean it. So you can always tell when you look at someone's work, whatever they're doing, if they mean it. You can tell. You can just see if they're putting everything into it, and that's so attractive to see that passion, especially instilled in a piece of sculpture or a dance or a painting. That person has left the room, and that energy is encrypted in this piece. And to me, that's great art. If you can get, everyone wants to feel something. So when you look at a painting, for example, and you feel emotion, it's great to feel something. That's what you want from great art. When you watch film, when you watch anything you love, and you get that emotion. That's hopefully what we're trying to aim for as artists. Otherwise, things are just objects. There's enough objects in the world,
Which takes me into this kind of idea of what is art then for us. I know it's a cliche question, but what are you trying to achieve then in your painting? What's the kind of impact you're trying to have on an audience then in your painting?
Well, you're not trying to achieve just one thing. I mean, it's a constant. It's like my dad's in his garden. He's got lots of things in his greenhouse. Some of these things are doing different things. The studio's like that. You have different things percolating at different times, and they're building, and you're working on stuff. You're not looking for sort of one line to deliver to people. It's a constant thing. It's exploration. It's discovering. It's like being a scientist as well. You're experimenting. Things don't work. Some things work, and it's all about this kind of thing. So I think, to answer your question, what you're trying to achieve, but it's a bit like what I was just saying. But you want to try and You want to try and make something which has an emotional value.
Right.
For me, that's art. If it's, you know, it's a different, you know, it's not just graphics or this, you know, it's not signage.
Right.
You could never have a fine art painter making signs, because people wouldn't understand it. They're like, what's that about, you know? Like, graphics is communication, and this, it can be art, well, it is art too. But like a painter, well, you want to be able to just give over that emotion.
Yeah. Emotion. And that comes from sort of observation, it comes from personal life, it comes from the context we're in. An interesting context, you mentioned the news earlier, and you mentioned also the idea of the kind of Catholic side of your upbringing. And there's a couple of controversial pieces, or interesting for me, rather controversial, where you talk about kill your idol in one piece, and then the other piece was about recently the Trump fags piece that was used in an activism march for women's rights post inauguration of a new president in America. Tell us about those kind of processes behind that as a painter.
I mean, it's really nice to go back to those things, because that's what Pictures on Walls are great at. Like, there are lots of artists who deal with, you know, similar subject matter. And now because I paint these very thick figures, you know, like painting figures, it was really nice to make the Trump cigarette boxes. Here we go. And it's playful, you know, and like it's funny, like on.
It's funny. Well, it's also quite disturbing.
Yeah. For me, it's, you know, it's a bit of fun, and obviously when Trump did get into power, it was a lot of things were very different, like the way he behaves, and it was shocking. Now we're just all used to it, which is quite sad, and none of this stuff anymore. It's very hard. Well, I'm still shocked by some of the things that goes on, but like now you just think, oh, there's so much noise around. Like, what difference does anything make, you know? And now this just seems like fun, or like a little joke, you know, but it's nice just to play around with things. I always love using advertising techniques and swapping it round on its head, you know. So if I wasn't painting, I'd definitely be in advertising, making that kind of work, because I find it really interesting, it's really fun. I love using their tools. I love the idea of selling, I don't want to do this now, but I love the idea of selling crap to people that they don't need. That's brilliant. That's what advertising does, right? So
it creates markets, yes.
Yeah, and like, it's so powerful. But I love the tricks and the tools. I'm fascinated by that.
And talking of markets and being a painter, then let's talk about this, because there's this whole ethics and morals to think through when creating work. When you're thinking about audiences, you're thinking about deeper emotions, and the market itself. You know, when you think about selling work. Do you ever fall into that trap where you're creating work that has to sell, even today, being more established than you were, say, at the age of 24?
No. I just think it's really bad if you're trying to please a lot of people, because like you don't end up pleasing anyone then.
Right.
And I think whatever you do, you've just got to hopefully, you know, do what's true to you. I like, that's why I did graphics, you know, or that's why I did a separate job, so I could earn my money that way and be able to do the things I love on the side. So the trouble is, if you mix it all in with your work, your message gets convoluted, you know, and your conversation is all mixed up, and then no one's going to see. It doesn't matter what you paint. You could paint anything. You could paint, you know, cats or watercolor, whatever, but just do it well and do it with passion. And just, you know, and then if you can make your money on the side doing something else, instead of diluting, you know, that meal you're making,
you know,
I know it's a better way of doing it.
Yes, I see your point. I mean, just what's some things that's bugging me at the moment, not with you, Antony, but with the world we're in, is what's happening to art, what's happening to painting in the modern day. You know, who's the next Antony is the question I ask. What is happening in our schools? I mean, fortunately, this great institution here, Chatsworth, has a strong educational program with schools. They have 20,000 people coming. We're in the learning room. Do you ever get involved in the kind of educational and arts sectoral kind of space as an influencer?
not enough,
No.
and I should do. I would like to do it more. It's just having time, really. But I was really lucky, like I said, to meet people who really inspired me and made me think I could do it. You know, yeah, it definitely needs more of that because it helped me. You know, so I was really lucky to meet those few individuals who, you know, who inspired me. And if you can pass that energy on, it's, you know, it's really good.
It's finding the space for it, and you know, we all know the power of art by the fact that we're all here today listening to Antony talk at this festival and seeing these incredible paintings and the journey that you've been on. And your journey itself is kind of symbolises for me some of the kind of the achievement of the impossible in a sense, because from a cultural desert, here you are now activated and very active in international spaces that are significant, you know, in terms of the art world and the communities we're in. I'm just wondering, out there in the audience, we have a roaming mic, and there may be something you might want to ask of Antony whilst he's here. Remember, he's only here for a short while. You're off to Bakewell after this.
Yeah, I'm up for questions. So,
so we're up for questions.
If you want.
Are there any questions at this stage? I know there's a couple of painters out there.
Yeah, I'd like to ask something.
So just wait for the mic because we're recording the conversation. So okay, we'll start here and then you'll get some.
I need the microphone. But
It's for the recording.
oh, I see. Right. Okay. I just wondered your kind of journey from Lincoln to the National Portraits. When you submitted, was it one of these very textural?
It was a figure painting. Actually, I forgot to put that in. It was a figure painting. It's not in this particular slideshow, but yeah, it was a self-portrait. But I just come back.
Self-portrait.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I just wondered because I didn't know that, but I just wondered how you know, what the message was in that painting and how it was different.
I'd actually just come back from Japan, so the great thing about all my paintings before I went to Japan were very, like I said, it was very into Lucian Freud, and they were very brown, very grey, and very sombre. And I went to Japan. I always wanted to use colour, but I felt for some reason I couldn't. So after going to Japan, it just all this stuff kind of came out, and I felt valid, and I started using colour, and so.
I love your colour. It's fabulous.
Thank you.
And just another quick, did you ever met Frank Albach, and was he a big...
Yeah, he's a big influence. I've never met him. I'd imagine, yeah, I've never met him.
Because the brush strokes and things are very similar, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love his work.
Yeah, thank you.
Question here at front.
Your gallery, when you're there and you've got a number of paintings you're doing, do you do one painting at a time, or does it matter on your mood swings? You have one picture that may have taken you, say, 6 or 7 months to do, and you have to be in a certain mood to go on to that painting? Or?
That's a really good question. Yeah, it works exactly like that. I mean, when I do the big, really thick, heavy impasto paintings, it takes weeks and weeks to make the background, and then to do the main figure, you've got to feel alert. You've got to feel together, very sort of fit. You can't be hungover in any way, and you know, because it's really physical. And if you stop and come back to it days or weeks later, your palette changes. It's dried, and so it looks like there are different chunks of bodies everywhere, and it doesn't work. So
I just wondered if, you know, like you may have been a painting that had been done 6 or 7 months, and you can only do that when you're coming one morning and think, I'll do a bit more on that today. So I just wondered if you had certain paintings that, you know, carry your mood swings.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, well, I'm working on a new body work now, and I've been working on 30 paintings all at once. But it's real different technique, and it's interesting getting used to working in different ways as well, because you're just making it up as you go along, so you hope it works.
Yeah.
But yeah, I call that action painting, that sort of very Frank Albert kind of very heavy, thick impasto way of working, but you've got to be totally committed at that time.
But like the Trump cigarette packets, is that a spur of the moment thing, or did you think about it, or was it a thing that you thought, like on a Monday, I'll do that on a Thursday? What I'm saying is, it sounds like you put a lot of thought into it. But
how did that come about?
It's so nice sometimes when you make art. Like, you have an idea and you're so excited. Like, you can't sleep. You wake up 6 in the morning and you just want to make it. And the Trump cigarette boxes for me was like, I had the idea and I just thought that would work. But I used to do my own portraits on the back of Marlboro Light packets.
Oh, yeah.
I've got one in there.
Yeah, I saw that.
I just thought it was funny and a bit dark. and then I had a charity thing come along and I thought that could work. So, but it's nice to get excited.
I think that's I mean, they're both very interesting questions about journeys and inspirations, and also about kind of the mood one has to be in, or the inspiration. And talking of inspiration, were there any other questions before we move on? There's one more here, then we'll come back to inspiration, and the question at the back.
Every time you post on Instagram, I think everybody alludes to this of an abattoir. Your studio looks like a murder scene and things like that. So, I mean, is the rest of your house messy?
Yeah. It's not as messy as my studio, but I'm not the most tidiest person. So yeah, but I know where everything is in the studio. I know there's areas where there's stuff. So
zones.
But it's not messy just because I want to be messy. It's like because I use so much paint. After a session, there's no point cleaning up because it's going to be the same the next day. So, and it takes hours to clean your brushes because if you don't clean them, and they're expensive, they just get messed up. So you're just so tired at the end of the session. You leave it like that, and then I clean up after a show. So.
And I mean, when you look at pictures, and then you always compare to Francis Bacon, and you look at pictures of his studio, and his studio was a mess, and pots full of money as well that he used to gamble in. And it's just, how do you feel about being referred all the time to Francis Bacon and compared to him? Because the early works, you can see John Virtue in your black and white works, and then this colour comes in, and how do you feel about being compared to him? Because you are all the time.
It's really nice. It's really flattering. I love Francis Bacon. I mean, it's amazing. It's just I do think we're very different, but it's very flattering that people would go, it looks a bit like that, So, yeah. Thank you.
I suppose the danger is when people start to define you in that way, rather than define you as Antony Micallef.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because you work and you have, as painters or artists, there's other artists you love and you follow their paths for a bit, and it's. Like you morph into this, and then you get interested into this, and you come into that, and so, it's just these things you follow, and it's just natural. Everybody follows those paths, and
and you're in the contemporary moment,
and then you find your own thing after a while.
Precisely, and so there's we never got to talk about the Kill Your Idol thing, which we must talk about because I'm intrigued by the process of why it was censored. But we have a question over there. Have a think about it. There's a question here. This gentleman, the black T-shirt.
Obviously, the Trump cigarette boxes. They're funny. They're great, and you're making a statement. But I get the impression from what you said earlier that a lot of the time you're just going into the studio. You're painting for yourself, and if people like it and want to buy it, that's like the icing on the cake and a bonus. But you're not painting for the public audience, you're painting for yourself, and people are putting messages on what you have painted after the event to try and interpret where you might not have that thought.
Yeah, I mean, once it leaves your room, it's in the wide world, and so that's when the painting, your artwork, has to fend for itself. So as long as you try and instill your message, of intent, that doesn't have to be a literal message, just what you're trying to say emotionally, then that's all you can do with it in the end. So you have to be happy with it before it leaves, and that's all you can control. And then it goes out and, you know, it has no words and it's got to fend for itself in a sense. So, and everyone's experiences are completely different. So people see different things, you know, depending on what their experience of red is or whatever. So it's all different.
And people also make assumptions, you know. So when commissioners pull work, they make assumptions about audiences and being careful about not offending. But I suppose the freedom of expression argues that you have the right to offend.
Yeah, I mean,
so to some degree, of course.
Yeah, I don't think it's healthy to try and want to offend. No. You just.
Well, it can be offensive. Not the intent may not be there, but it might end up being offensive. If you see what I mean. So, for example, the Kill Your Idol series. That was that the London Transport?
Yeah. So I was asked to do a Station of the Cross, and I thought the first Station of the Cross, Pontius Pilate, condemning Jesus to death. So I had Pop Idol instead, which I just thought was, like a modern equivalent, I guess, now. Because it's all about humiliation, isn't it, really?
Sure. So your intent wasn't what was being interpreted, in a sense, by the commissioner. The commissioner pulls it and says it's going to be offensive.
Oh, it was commissioned by Marylebone Church.
Right.
For an exhibition on the London Underground. The London Underground said, no, we can't have this because it might offend people.
Right.
And then the Archbishop of Canterbury wanted to show it in the cathedral.
Right.
So that was interesting.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So I'm glad that worked out.
It worked out well in the end.
Yeah, the Archbishop likes it.
Well, this can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Well, if he's giving God, you see what I mean? He's blessed it. You should go back to the arts in the underground. Any more questions for Anthony? Any more thoughts? Any more kind of urgent questions? If not, we can always catch him in the festival whilst he's here. I suppose we'll end on that dramatic note very soon. But look, Anthony, before we finish, it'd be nice just to know what you're doing next, where we can see your work. Because since your last solo show, Raw Intent, which was an incredible body of work, a fantastic interpretation by Paul Morehouse. I mean, you have a show in London coming up, or has it already launched?
No, so I'm going to be shown in London next September, so I've got plenty of time to... I'm still making the work, so yeah.
And is it, are you allowed to say what you're kind of working on, or is it...
We'll just save it.
Save it.
Yeah.
Save it for the moment.
Yeah. Just see the work.
See the work.
Yeah.
Where will that be?
It'll be in London at the Lazaridis Gallery, so Lazink. It's on Sackville Street, but I'll put it out online, and when it's September, but there's no specific date yet. So, but I'm still making the work, so I don't want to talk about it.
So final question then. How to be a painter? Final words from you, Anthony.
Just work bloody hard.
There you go.
Yeah.
Work bloody hard. Keep going. Don't give up. Persevere. Find your passion, and be true to the emotions you're trying to share. I think that's what I've learned today from Anthony. A big round for myself. Go enjoy the festival, and we'll see you real soon. If you want to talk to Anthony, absolutely.